Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Sky Bellarmine, author, speaker, and empowerment coach, whose life has been shaped by extraordinary resilience. After surviving a near fatal head on collision with a wrong way driver, learning to walk again, and escaping 2 decades of narcissistic abuse, Skye transformed her painful experiences into a mission of hope and healing. Skye, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darlington. So happy to be here.
All right, so your Breaking Solace trilogy is inspired by your own life experiences. What led you to tell your story through fiction other than a traditional memoir?
So my experience on being hit by a wrong way driver, that was quite the journey. The doctors didn't expect me to live or ever walk again after waking up from a coma. I did obviously live and I did learn to walk again, but I'll just tell you what, Darlington, that was quite the journey to heal. And in the midst of 12 surgeries during 6 years of my life, I was married to a covert narcissist at the time. And so I didn't realize it, that all the red flags were there, but you're talking about like adding value to your life. And that's what I've really had to learn, because when you're in that type of relationship, and especially when you can't walk or anything, you get beaten down pretty far and you get devalued in a big way. And so I had to learn how to stand literally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and to walk again. And that experience itself helped bring value to my life to a degree at that time and to my family. But then getting out of that controlling relationship took a lot of guts and a lot of building my tribe and having people walk through it with me, having a strong faith as well to walk through that and realize that I do have value in this world. And that's what I'm trying to help others realize too, that they're worthy, they're not to blame, and that they do have something to add. They have something to bring to the table in this world of ours. And so I'm working with people and clients and speaking and coaching to help people see that very thing. And I appreciate your strategy of trying to help people realize that they do bring value.
All right, so you have survived both a devastating accident and years of narcissistic abuse. How did those experiences reshape your understanding of strength and resilience?
So that's what my Breaking Solace book trilogy is really all about, is identifying the toxicity in your relationship. And a lot of people just don't recognize it or they dismiss it. And what happens when you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, they're all about themselves. They think they're the best in the world. The narcissist thinks they're the smartest in the room. And they'll do everything in their power to bring you down, to cut you down. And during those 20 years, oftentimes he would tell me to stop talking because I was making his head hurt, or that my opinions didn't matter, or my memory was wrong, or he didn't do that, or I was to blame because he lost his keys or had a bad day. And so when you hear that over and over and over again on a daily basis, and being raged at on a daily basis over pretty much nothing most of the time, you're down. You get down. You get sad. You get depressed, and you kind of wonder, how am I ever going to get out of this hole? And so it often takes somebody pointing it out to you, because you don't realize what a rabbit hole you're in already. And somebody can come along, as in my case, and pointed out the lies and the manipulations and the control that was being exuded over me and into my life. And at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. here, let's build our tribe. Let's get a few people together, a therapist, attorney, a best friend, a sister, whatever, and build a little tribe, a village, if you will, to bring this person out of this mess. And there is life after narcissistic abuse. A lot of people don't think there is, but there is. And many people, particularly women, it's the fear in the finances, the fear of leaving. Like, you've been in this abusive relationship for so long, but you don't know normal. You don't know what life could be like. So you just stick it out one day at a time. And then when you do finally, like I said, get that aha moment and realize that you can move on, that's very freeing in a way, but scary too, because you really don't know what the future holds. But just getting out of the abusive relationship is the main point, the main leg of the journey, that you start walking away. Now, my ex fought me for 21 months. I mean, the divorce process was volatile. I guess you could say. You never knew what was coming one day to the next. Very much like a chess match where you don't know what the action and the reaction is going to be. And so just trying to get out of that narcissistic, toxic relationship is the key. And that's what I help people do. I'm here to coach and help people, first of all, understand what's going on in their life. And then secondly, developing a game plan to help them move on.
Okay, for healing isn't just about leaving a difficult situation. It's about rebuilding yourself afterward. What did that rebuilding process look like for you?
So the healing process, first of all, when you've exited the relationship and it finally is over, your attorney calls you, or you find out that yes, everything is done. The first question you ask yourself is, okay, what now? Because you've been either controlled by them for so long that you never had any, you had to give up all your hobbies, your pastimes, your passions, because you had to do what they wanted to do or be with them all the time. And so then after the divorce or the exit is done with the relationship, then you're kind of like, well, what's next? And that's another big piece of that healing process, is figuring out, well, what was I like? What did my personality used to be? What can it be now? What's next for me? Or what's next for the person exiting that relationship? And so that's really had to figure out, like, what did I used to like to do? And because all that's gone when you're in that controlling relationship. And so the healing process is figuring out kind of physically, what do you want to be like? Mentally, where are you and where do you want to be? Emotionally, that's probably what takes the longest piece of the healing. And I can say to this day, that still goes on because there's triggers and there's PTSD and all that from being in a toxic relationship. And then financially, what do you want to do with all this? I say life's 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do with it. And spiritually, like I said, I'm very faith-based. And so realizing that there's a higher power and there's a calling. What is your calling? What is your purpose? And when you come through that narcissistic relationship and get on the other, or start to get on the other side, that's one question that we all have had, okay, now what's my calling? Okay, now what's my purpose? And so that's something that I'm really kind of living in right now. Book 3, it was a Breaking Solace, Escaping Solace, and Without Solace. Book 3 is kind of finding, what's that purpose, what's that calling. And interestingly, with the Breaking Solace trilogy, on launch day, the books actually went from fictional novel category into 46 categories of self-help books in psychology and relationships and domestic violence in 4 nations, because of the authenticity of the story, which is based on my story. But really, it's become, I was in a TV interview one time and said, well, this is just kind of like a how-to manual on working through a narcissistic relationship or navigating that journey. And I said, yeah, in a way it is. When you identify with Tally and her story, it can help bring you along in kind of a way.
Okay, so looking back, what advice would you give your younger self before the accident, before the abuse, and before all the hardships that followed?
Oh, wow. Oh, Darlington, that's a big question. So what's interesting is, as an empath, which is empaths are who the narcissists really seek out because they don't have empathy. The neurons didn't form as a child. So my ex asked me to help him never become controlling like his parents. And, we were in college at the time. I said, well, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. I'll help you do that. And then there's that codependency. Like, oh my gosh, he needs me. And then he's like, oh my gosh, I've got this person that's going to help me do this. So there's this codependency going on, and they're manipulating and they're controlling. They're the puppet master. So to my younger self, I would say, to be in that conversation at that time, I would go ahead and set up some boundaries, and also tell myself to not become controlled. Even if I did decide to go through with that relationship again, I would definitely play my cards differently. I would have boundaries. I would have him in counseling. I would work through with exercises on this. We would have meetings with his parents to talk about control. I mean, I would have handled it differently. I'm not saying that I would not have gone through with the relationship, because maybe I would have. But I would have been very, very more self-aware, self-assured, and very cognizant of the boundaries that I would have needed to have set back then.
Okay, so your story demonstrates that scars don't have to define our future. What practices or mindset shifts helped you transform pain into purpose?
Yeah, so I'd say that psychological scars are definitely there, but you pivot. You learn a mindset pivot, and like I said, the 10%, 90% is kind of how I live my life, but also just realizing that you can spiritually climb out of this. You can pivot your mindset to where you don't get triggered by memories or PTSD memories, reminders of the past traumatic relationship. And then secondly, what are you going to do instead of allow yourself to be triggered? Okay, so thinking about journaling, for example. Okay, that's what really started me writing the bestsellers. Was I was in the midst of a divorce, and I was like, oh my God, I got to write some of this stuff down. And so once I started that, it turned into an international best-selling novel trilogy. Who knew? I guess God did. But that's one thing, to have the pivot and the mindset. Write it down, get it out so that you don't dwell on it. Because that's what pains me a lot, Darlington, is when I see people in situations, in toxicity, whether it's work-related or familial or relational in some way, and they dwell on it. Like, let's pivot. Let's move that mindset. Let's shift that into, what can we do with this? Okay, what can we do with this? And another idea that I throw out to some of my clients, and it comes from project management expertise, is the idea of milestones. We say, oh, we got to reach this milestone by this certain day, or, oh my God, the divorce is going on, and we got a deposition, and there's a milestone, and we have to have this figured out. Well, let's just step back a minute, and let's call those inch pebbles. Okay, inch pebbles are little victories along the way, little accomplishments, and you celebrate those. So another mindset shift is to celebrate the little things. Okay, so you have a day where you're smiling and you're not all torn up inside about what's going on in your life. That's an inch pebble. Celebrate that. Go get a coffee, or go for a walk with a friend, or take your dog out, or whatever you do that makes you even happier. And that's the shift in that mindset, is focus on the little victories.
Okay, so As readers finish the Breaking Solace trilogy, what do you hope they carry with them long after they have turned the final page?
So one thing they will realize, readers are already coming to me say, hey, when's book 3 coming out? So it's coming out in October of this year. Is to realize that they are enough, that they are not to blame. So I have yet to meet anybody, Darlington, who has not come into contact with some type of controlling relationship in their life. And I just want people to know that it's not your fault for jumping into that relationship. Secondly, you are enough, even though you've been told you're not. And you're not too emotional and too sensitive, even though you've been told you are. And that you can do something with your life beyond being stuck in that relationship. And also, I just want people to know they can reach out to me. I can share, support groups and all that with people to help them walk this journey successfully as I have, and I'm still walking it. I said without solace, I'm kind of living book 3 right now. And so that's where I would have people when they turn that final page again to realize that they are enough. It's not their fault. And there's a new life ahead of them on the other side of this abuse.
All right, Sky, thank you so much for sharing your remarkable journey of resilience, healing, and hope. The story is a powerful reminder that even after life's darkest seasons, it's possible to rebuild with purpose and courage. For listeners who would like to learn more about your books, coaching, or speaking, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Okay, my website is SkyBellarmine.com, skybellarmine.com. My books are on Amazon. My speaking programs are on my website. You can also look me up on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I would love to talk with you.
All right, Sky, once again, thank you so much for coming to my show, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and your perspective with me and my audience.
Thank you. This was an awesome conversation, Darlington, and I'm just happy to have been here.
All right, so I wanted to ask you this question. When we were talking, we talked about control a lot. So how did my podcast title strike you when you saw it?
When I saw the title and the description of it, I thought this fits what I've been going through. I've been under his control for decades. And so realizing that I can be on the other side of that and that there are other people apparently going through this same kind of situation. I like that. Because I'm not controlled anymore, but you become more in control, if you will, of your own emotions.
All right, thank you so much for coming to my show, and I really appreciate you.
I thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, have a wonderful day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.